Hello folks, welcome back to my channel. In my last video I talked about what my family and I did before we moved to countries. In this video I want to give you some extra details in terms of the steps that we're taking, just a little more details, right? So that at least you have insights, you have a clearer insight into specifics that we did. But before I go into it, my name is Frederick. I'm a real estate investor, entrepreneur based here in Ontario, Canada. I operate a combined portfolio valued in excess of about 7 figures. Moved to Canada in 2021, and my channel is pretty much just to share my own personal experiences in my investing and business journeys, and to also share some tips and some information that can help you do the same in case you're interested. So thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate you taking time to spend time with me. Okay, so like I said, I want to just share some extra details into specific steps further to the last video that I did, and these steps were really helpful in terms of helping us to execute and make our plans materialize. So in the last video I spoke about the research that I did. Interestingly, as you would all recall, I said in the last video that I did a lot of research. The information that I was able to gather arising from those researches were fundamentally from, the internet. I made a few inquiries. I paid for courses, to get more information. Information is critical, my friends. Information is critical. There's a saying that if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Or if you think information is expensive, maybe try ignorance. What you don't know, you don't know. What you don't know, you don't know. Right? So when you're planning a big thing like relocating, you need all the information you can get. You need all the information you can get. Believe me. There is no information that is too small to have, especially when it is connected with your relocation plans. You're going to a place where you have probably haven't been to, you've never lived there. So all the information you need or you can get is very important. Because a lack of any information that is relevant to you can cost you a lot. The lack of having that information, or lack of you knowing that, having that information the consequence can be huge. So you want to know everything. You want to know everything, right? If you have to pay to get that information, so be it, which is exactly what I did. I took some courses. I paid certain folks in order to get the information that I needed. You would also recall that in the last video I mentioned the fact that we had decided to go into the real estate sector. I was quite familiar with the real estate sector in Nigeria, but I really didn't know what the North American market or the Canadian market was like. So I had to do my research, and I also had to do some courses, paid some people in order to get additional information before I jumped into it. I can tell you, that throughout the year from 2019 jumping into 2020, even through all the COVID lockdowns, I was pretty much consuming information and gathering knowledge. Consuming information from around middle of 2019 all the way to around early 2020. Yes, I was busy gathering information in the course of doing my research, taking courses, watching videos, getting some coaching and mentoring and all that. I cannot tell you how important and how helpful that was. If you want to take this kind of step, one of the first things that I literally advise you to do is not to just jump. Take time to get information, take time to do your research, ask people who know better. If you have to pay for courses, if you have to pay for consulting to get information, please do so, because I tell you, it is going to save you thousands and thousands of money. It's also going to save you a lot of time, because if you learn from people who have done it before, it saves you headaches, a lot of headaches. It saves you a lot of mistakes. It stops you from making mistakes. And those mistakes can actually cost you thousands and thousands of money, which you don't need to spend or which you don't need to waste, right? So, like I said, we watched videos, we took courses, we engaged, we asked a lot of people who knew better than us. And, you know, with all that information that we had, then we immediately took action. Traveled all the way to Ontario, Canada. You know, we narrowed down to where we wanted to live. We took a trip to the Halton region, took a trip to cities like Oakville, Milton, Burlington. You know, when we got to Canada, we had an appointment with a realtor, because like I said, we had decided we wanted to do real estate investing. So we took an appointment, we got an appointment with a realtor, met with a realtor, we met with a mortgage broker. You know, we sat with them, we told them our plans, we discussed our plans with them. They gave us their own advice, you know, told us what to do. We went to the bank in Canada at the time. We met with bankers. We told them we're just in the process of moving from Nigeria, and we told them our plans. They advised us in terms of what to do. They specifically told us, oh, look, we told them we're going to start liquidating assets back home in Nigeria. We asked them the best way to start moving some of those resources into Canada. They advised us in terms of how to do it, in order not to flag our accounts, in order to comply with the money laundering rules. You know, we met with family, some friends that we have here who were already living in Canada. We told them some of our plans. They also advised us in terms of the locations, the areas to live in. You know, they advised us in terms of what to do and what not to do. But please remember that even while we're meeting all these people and having all these meetings with these people, we already had done our research and we had an idea. So my advice would be, yes, it's good to do all these things that I'm saying, but please, that does not excuse you from doing your own research. Sit down, you have the internet. Sit down and do some research of your own. The importance of doing research of your own is such that even when you're talking to these people, somehow, because you have a little knowledge, you have some information for yourself that you've done as a result of the research you've done. If anybody tells you something that is not correct, you might just pick it up immediately because you've done some research on your own. So you're not taking everything hook, line, and sinker because you've done some research of your own. So when you hear things that align with what you discovered in the course of doing your research, it immediately jumps out to you because you've done research. You've done your research, right? So while I am not downplaying, while I'm not going against everything I've said on the research and talk to people who know better, meet the talk to experts. You have to pay for courses, please pay. If you have to pay for consulting, please do. The point I'm just trying to make is that you must have done some work on your own. It is important that you do some work on your own. And, even when we traveled to Canada to do some tours, went back to Nigeria, started to execute some of those things. We started to liquidate some of our assets in Nigeria. We liquidated our money market investments. We had some real estate interest. We liquidated some of them as well. Sold them and started converting the funds into USD. At the time, the USD rates back then in Nigeria was, I think it was 360 naira to a US dollar. So then the exchange rate was way better. It was way better than what it is now. And so we're able to convert a substantial amount of our liquidated investments into US dollars. And as the bank in Canada had advised us then, we started to wire them because the bank had specifically told us to wire those funds from our own account in Nigeria to our own account, our own USD accounts in Canada, which is exactly what we did. the bank had also advised that if we're planning to engage in real estate investing, we needed to have those funds sit in our account in Canada for at least 3 months, which we did. So we took a step-by-step approach, and in executing those plans, and we did exactly what we were told by the experts who knew better than us. And at the end of the day, on our part, when we went back to Nigeria and started executing those plans, at some point, I think in January of 2020, we reached out to the realtor we had meetings with, reached out to the mortgage broker that we had meetings with in 2019, and told them we're ready to pull the trigger. Told them we're ready to pull the trigger and give them specific instructions on the first real estate asset that we acquired, which was in Oakville, Ontario, And we told them we're ready to pull the trigger, and told them to start looking for properties for us. And I remember they started looking for. This was supposed to be properties that we're supposed to live in. The property me and my family were supposed to live in. And like I said, we had narrowed down to Milton, I think Milton and Oakville. So we reached out to the realtor and said, start looking for properties for us in these locations. And they started. And we reached out to the mortgage broker as well and said, look, we're ready to pull the trigger. Start your own work as well. And the mortgage broker also started. And the point I'm making is, after, like I said in the last video, the moment we had done taking all these steps, we took action. We took action to start executing the plan and bringing it to life, bringing the plan to life, which was what we did. And that was how we acquired our first property in Oakville. From there, we took further steps to acquire properties in Windsor, Ontario. And from Windsor in Ontario, we felt the property prices in Ontario were a bit too high for investing purposes because we were trying to ramp up our return on investment. And from there, we went to Saskatchewan in Canada. We also went to New Brunswick in Canada, and also invested in real estate assets in those two provinces as well. The interesting thing about those two provinces, Saskatchewan and New Brunswick, was the fact that properties were way cheaper than in Ontario. So the return on our investment was way better, which was very attractive for us in those two provinces. And that's how our real estate investing journey started in Canada. I'm going to give, in the next video, I will give you more information in terms of what else we did, because we also had our eyes set out in the USA, because we knew that the USA is very close to Canada, and we started to explore investing opportunities in the US as well, especially when it came to real estate. But I'm not going to go into that video now. Thank you very much. I will go into it in subsequent videos. Thank you very much for joining me and spending your time with me in this video. I hope you too learned a thing or two from what I said, and I will catch you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.